Blessings and welcome everyone, Nico here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about hauntings. House hauntings, property hauntings, spiritual activity, and a little bit about visitations, but we might cover visitations in another video. I want to give a shout out to my brother Curtis for this discussion because he really does help me come up with organizing my thoughts on how to actually present a conversation or address a conversation. A little known, truth about me, I have a lot to say and I don't know what to say sometimes when it comes to making a video. And so my closest friends know that I like conversation, intellectual stimulation, and just going into the deep dive studies, but they also help me out by asking the questions that really do make for good content. Everyone thank Curtis for this because I probably would have just come up with a rambling mess. And so he really helped me organize my thoughts on this one. In the interest of organizing my thoughts and doing something a little bit different, we're not just going to talk about hauntings in general, like how do you know if there's a haunting going on or if there's a presence in the house? I mean, we will cover a bit of that in this video, but I want to talk specifically about how a haunting actually happens and how it gets started. Where does it come from? What are the origins, right? That's giving it a little bit of a different spin. For those of you that do know me, I'm always more interested in the how something works, right? The mechanics and dynamics, especially when it comes to the metaphysical, the spiritual, and the magical, and not just the contemplation of the phenomena itself. And so we're going to be talking about hauntings, how hauntings get started, what is the process, what is going on, and I'll give you, of course, some advice on how to address and how to approach certain types of hauntings or spiritual activity that may be going on with you, or maybe some things that you'd like context to in your own personal history. When it comes to hauntings in general, we can't talk about how it happens without talking about the most common types of hauntings. And so I'm going to break it down into 4 categories. So number 1, of course, is the more commonly known. Okay, there is a ghost or a presence of one who may have transitioned, right, passed away, and they are remaining in that space for whatever reason. Number 2, you may have a thought form or a poltergeist. And a way to differentiate, a thought form essentially is an entity that does not necessarily have a soul. It is not really something that has like a spiritual path or a purpose, or it's not a part of the cosmic cycle, but it is a creation of energy, of consciousness, that is kind of almost more like a robot in a sense, where it does have a life of its own, but it doesn't have sentience, not necessarily in the way that we look at sentience. It is usually something that is created either by a person or a group of people, consciously or unconsciously, especially if there is a high energetic, emotional, or psychic charge in that thought form, which ultimately then kind of brings it forth into being, constructs it, and then it's just kind of, running around. And thought forms are, again, they're not ghosts. Ghosts have souls, thought forms do not. Poltergeists fall under the category of thought forms, though they are, it's a bit confusing with poltergeists because, right, poltergeist means noisy ghost. But in actuality, a poltergeist is a thought form that is more complex, that is actually the incarnation of the person that actually created it. And so a poltergeist is kind of like a spawn or a detachment that was created as a thought form from an individual that may have expelled it or created it in an intense situation or an intense state. And so that poltergeist carries the some of the traits, let's say some of the traits, as well as some of the mannerisms and some of the essential nature of the person that created it when they created it. But again, a poltergeist, much like a thought form, does not actually have a soul. It is more like a robot, or more like, yeah, let's just say a robot is a good way to look at it. It's just kind of doing its thing, but it's not really a part of the cycle of life. Category number 3, of course, now we got to talk about demons and demonic activity. Demonic activity is extremely rare, and that is typically a situation where you would be dealing with a space, a structure, or maybe a person that has been exposed to or dabbled in any kind of darker ritual magics. A demon would have to have been summoned or called into the space at some point in time. And again, it's extremely rare. And then you also have, for the 4th category, nature spirits, elementals, fairies. This category is kind of rare when we're talking about inside the house. You know, I mean, there are such things as house brownies. I've had house brownies, and they're very, very kind, and they're very beneficent. They're very easy to work with. I've brought gnomes into my home, all of that good stuff. Nature spirits tend to go either way. They can be, you know, fun, and they can be really nice, and they can help you, and they can just be a part of the family, or they might be belligerent. It's kind of like human beings, right? They are our closest relatives in terms of spirits on earth. And so, you know, when it comes to nature spirits, it's kind of a mixed bag. You don't really know what you're gonna get, just like people. To be perfectly honest, most of the time, you know, when I've done my house clearings and house cleansings, and I've done a lot of house clearings and cleansings, especially in the late 2000s, early 2010s, all around Washington State and Puget Sound, most of the time people are dealing with the thought form or poltergeist category. And that's something I definitely want to remind people of here, is that, you know, most of the time you are dealing with maybe negativity, or maybe some kind of psychic or spiritual malady or disorder that is probably coming from a person that is alive. And, you know, whether it is something that they've created like a thought form, something that was left in the space by maybe previous tenants, something that may be kind of moving about, say if you're in an apartment or a townhouse and it's kind of, you know, wandering about the property, or it's something that has accumulated over time. That is most of the cases that I've ever, you know, dealt with. Of course, I have dealt with ghosts, I have dealt with demons, I have dealt with nature spirits. I've actually played sort of the diplomat between people and nature spirits before. One time I actually had a reading. I was just doing a reading for somebody. It was a tarot reading, and then it turned into a mediumship session where my client was concerned about what they thought would be, you know, again, demonic activity or an angry ghost or something that was wreaking havoc on their home. And then upon investigation and looking into the matter, it was actually a group of nature spirits, a group of you know, gnomes and fairies and all of that. And what had happened is they had actually, in the process of landscaping, destroyed a part of their habitat. And what I picked up in the reading was, you know, there was a very old tree that my client and her husband had actually had removed, and it disturbed the land in that way, and it disturbed their ecosystem, you know, kind of like wiping out a neighborhood for them. They were pissed. And so, of course, you know, as part of that discussion, you know, I was like, look, you just have to replace what you took. And they did, and everything calmed down. It was like, okay, we're gonna go plant another tree, make an offering, you know, just like a shot of whiskey and maybe a little bit of honey or a little bit of oatmeal, leave it out there, you know, and allow them to have something new, and things will calm down. And it did, and it worked out just fine. And actually they ended up having a good relationship with those spirits. Then they started, you know, having more of a symbiotic connection and much more neighborly, right? Good neighbors kind of energy. You know, if you do happen to feel like maybe there's a nature spirits, you know, situation, you can usually work with them and actually have a better quality of life with a good relationship with them. Anyway, I'm gonna lose my place if I keep trying to address every little detail that comes to mind as I go. See why I need friends to stimulate and help me organize the conversation, because there's just, I wanna fire hose you. Anyway, how does this all come about? How does this all happen? How does this all occur and, come about being? Remember, everything is energy. So whether it is a physical object, which is just a dense accumulation of energy, or it is your aura, or it is a spirit, or it's a part of your consciousness, or it's a guide or an angel, whatever, everything is energy. We live in a harmonic, vibrating universe. And so when it comes to hauntings, different vibrational atmospheres create different conditions. You might consider it almost like a biosphere, a spiritual biosphere, which permit certain types of spiritual activity to occur, exist, or sustain themselves. And we have this very same type of biosphere or energetic, atmosphere within ourselves, within our own bodies, within our own auras, our own energy fields and systems. Hauntings themselves tend to show up in spaces where there is some kind of set condition that is either continuing to replay something out over and over and over again, or in the case of nature spirits, it's part of their territory. Remember, we share this world, we share this universe. We are not the only ones here. Let's not be spiritual narcissists. So when it comes to the discussion of, all right, well, how does, say, a ghost or a transitioned person come to inhabit a space, or maybe they're earthbound, why are they stuck there, what is going on? We have to think about the energetic conditions of that space and the energetic condition of that being at the same time, right? Because obviously there is some kind of match going on there. Typically, when we have somebody that is stuck or maybe held to a space against their will, this is not a spirit who is trying to stay there. Either A, they don't know what's going on, or B, they can't get out, or they're bound or whatever. That is typically because the energy of the space has somehow become stagnant. It has become very, very dense. And dense vibrations, denser energies, those heavier atmospheres tend to get sticky for a lot of beings, especially when it comes to denser vibrations created out of either denser environmental conditions or dense emotional conditions. So dense, low, heavy vibes like that tend to hold a being in space. Now we are talking about vibrations of things like fear, jealousy, betrayal, obsession, over-attachment, or anything that is going to precipitate maybe sloth, such as sadness, or anything that is going to create, again, almost like a container that is running a repeat situation or a repeat cycle over and over and over again. Sometimes the only thing you have to do to help a spirit move on is clear those heavy vibrations, clear the stuckness, break the cycle, and eliminate something that is kind of a repetitious pattern in the spiritual atmosphere or the energy of the space. Typically, spaces that are very active are places that have energy centers on the land or beneath the land that are not being cleared or cycling through on a continuous level, or on a continuous basis, I should say. So when we talk about, say, underground pools or standing water, or maybe there's a large quantity of quartz in the earth itself, in the soil itself, limestone in particular, any kind of situation where there is a great deal of energy storage or energy stagnation in a space or in a property or, again, on the land, can hold things there. So what ends up happening is that because of course we know when something stays in a repetitious cycle or it does stagnate, it starts to become denser and denser and denser and denser anyway. All kinds of beings, including people, end up getting stuck, getting kind of pulled into the gravity of that circumstance. It's almost like the energy of that area has become a bit of a neutron star. It's very dense and it's got a very, very heavy gravitational pull. And so, clearing the land, purging all of that, getting the energy moving again, raising the vibrations can do wonders, even for spirits that have been trapped there for a long time. Some hauntings are temporary. Some beings are, again, not problems at all. When I first started working on YouTube, I was living in Redmond, Washington. And the house that I was living in with a few friends was actually haunted by a girl, just a young girl, and her name was Sarah, and she didn't cause any trouble. She was a very sweet girl, and we just let her hang out with us. We didn't really, nothing was wrong, and nothing bothered her, nothing bothered us. She kind of just at some point up and walked away, and it was very clear, okay, she had passed on at some point, possibly within, a year or two prior to us moving into the place. And she was just kind of hanging out. She liked her house, she liked her room, she liked her neighborhood. She was spending time maybe with some of her, childhood friends in the neighborhood. And she wasn't an issue at all. So we didn't even bother with that. She wasn't obsessed. She wasn't fixated. We just kind of had a good time together. And so we never really did anything about it, because you don't have to banish everything just because it's there. We wanted to be friendly. We wanted to be on good terms with her, because what? She was young. I mean, my God, her energy was maybe 6, 7 years old. We were just going to be chill with that. And, in the sessions we were looking at, her guides were with her, she was being taken care of, she was being indulged. And so I thought, well, what? Not a big deal. And it wasn't a big deal. So sometimes these things are not really a big problem. If you are dealing with a situation where a haunting is disturbing you in any way, shape, or form, it's important to remember not to freak out. It may not be something negative. It may actually just be something that is, working its way through, or you may even have a friendly ghost, or you may have a friendly nature spirit on your side. Demonic activity, as I said, is, of course, extremely rare. I mean, if I had to go in terms of most common to least common, most common, it's thought forms and poltergeists, then nature spirits, then actual ghosts, and then following that, demonic activity. Sometimes when it comes to hauntings, it's really just a matter of learning to coexist. Obviously, with the situation when it comes to demons and thought forms, I don't think there's a point in trying to coexist. You do need to banish, you do need to clear, you do need to neutralize the situation. If you find that you are in a situation where, something like sage isn't working, I'll come back and talk about this another time, because I think we do need to have this talk. Keep in mind that sage is a fire extinguisher, and so, fire extinguishers are only helpful for so long. If a fire gets out of control or a situation has just advanced to the point where the fire extinguisher won't work, you need to do something more than just burn sage in your house. If you want to bring in stronger herbs, especially for clearing and banishing, absolutely, you might want to consider maybe myrrh or clove or frankincense, or, learn yourself, right? We'll be talking about that more as we go through this channel. Ways that you can do a full-blown house clearing and purging so that you can eliminate any kind of threat. But again, most of the time, we're dealing with thought forms that will be dissolved with sage or sound, singing bowls, charged water, blessed water, moon water, or we are dealing with poltergeists that you can, effectively shatter, or you can break, again, with those very same tools, or you're working with nature spirits, which ultimately you don't have to try and banish. You can usually work out a good relationship with. So this was intended to just sort of be an overview of how this all comes about and what's going on, what you might be dealing with. It is a huge topic of discussion, and so I'm gonna leave it here. So I'm trying to, make sure that these videos don't go beyond 20 minutes long if I can help it. If you have any questions or have a suggestion for a video or a topic that you'd like my take on, please leave a comment in the down bar below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You know I appreciate it. And of course, engagement helps this channel out a lot. Y'all take care, and I will see you again very soon.